Hello Internet, my name is Lave and I watched Rogue One again and I enjoyed it just as much second time around. It really is very, very good. Hopefully you've had a chance to see it over the weekend because this is going to be a spoiler talk video. That's your warning, spoilers ahead. It's been a while since I've done a spoiler talk video, so I'm really looking forward to just talking about a film without worrying about ruining it for you guys. So let's get on with this shit. So I really dug the beginning of this film. It starts off with the traditional blue writing title card a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, but then it completely skips the yellow scrolling title and drops us right in on the action. Here we're introduced to Galen Erso and his family who are hiding on this Earth-like planet with Saturn-like rings. It's absolutely gorgeous. Obviously filmed in Iceland. It's really great location shooting. Here we're introduced to Galen Erso and his family who are hiding out on this planet from the Empire as they're tracked down by director Krennic, who is there to get Galen Erso back because production on the Death Star has slowed down in his absence. I really like the dialogue between the two. Galen is actually lying to him saying that his wife has already died, but then she turns up. It's such a good scene. You find out everything that you need to know about Galen Erso and his relationship with director Krennic, played by Ben Mendelsohn, who I think is really good in this film, but I'll come back to him in a mo because I think the emotional core of this film, as I said in my spoiler-free review, is the relationship between Jyn Erso and Galen Erso. And I think the peak of that is when Jyn sees his holographic message in Saw Gerrera's cave. I think that is the most emotional scene for me, and I think it's supremely acted by Felicity Jones. She's brilliant in that scene. Not only does it fix a major plot hole in A New Hope, which I absolutely love, it's revealed that Galen Erso has deliberately put in this weakness for the rebellion to attack and ultimately blow up the Death Star in A New Hope, but it also marks a turning point for Jyn Erso, who up until this point isn't really on the rebellion side or on the Empire side. She just is there. She feels like she's been abandoned by everyone in her life, but seeing this holographic message, she realizes that her dad is trying to do a good thing out of a bad situation. That's what gives her the kick up the arse to join the rebellion. And this is all capped off with a really emotional death scene when she finally finds him again on this planet Edu. It really reminded me of Attack of the Clones when Anakin finds his mum and she dies, but the difference is I found that scene really corny in Attack of the Clones. I think it's quite badly acted and the dialogue is really cheesy. Whereas Galen's death, despite being very similar, is much better acted, and the dialogue, when he says I have so much to tell you and then passes away, I was like, oh my god. I also have to point out that he actually died because the Rebel Alliance bombed him, and that's what this film does really well. It blurs the lines between the good guys and the bad guys. The good guys are doing bad things and the bad guys are doing good things. And I think the character that embodies this the most is Diego Luna's character, Cassian Andor. When we're first introduced to him, he's talking to a rebel informant who tells him that a pilot from the Empire has defected, and then they realise that they're cornered by some stormtroopers and the informant has a broken arm, so he can't climb out of this alleyway that they're in, so he just shoots the guy in the back and makes his escape. I was like, that's brilliant. Good. Now they do cap off his character arc with an expositional monologue speech, but I actually think that it works in this case. He says to Jyn at one point that he's been fighting this war since he was 6 and every bad thing that he's done has been for the greater good, for the rebellion. In my spoiler review I also said that a romance develops between him and Jyn, but I think I was actually wrong about that. I was reading too much into it. I think there's just a mutual respect between them. When she finally decides to join the rebellion, he believes in her and decides to back her up. I think that's it. So I want to go back to actually one of my favourite characters, or at least my favourite performance in this film, and that's Ben Mendelsohn as director Krennic. He's a bad guy that you love to hate. I think it's a really good performance. He's such a slimy git and is just doing anything that he can to advance his own career. I love the fact that he thinks that the Death Star is his own creation when really he's got other people to build it for him. him. But on multiple occasions, he keeps saying to people, "Oh, you going to tell the Emperor about my Death Star?" He even says it to Darth Vader, who force chokes him and says, "Don't choke on your own aspirations, director." That's just so great. And I really love the fact that his final scene, when he's been shot by Cassian on top of that antenna thing, he looks out and on the horizon his Death Star arrives and he knows he's going to get killed by his own weapon. There's something really poetic in that. I thought it was great. So let's talk about the elephant in the room, the one that everyone's talking about in their reviews, this digital character. Well, it's Grand Moff Tarkin. They've brought him back from the dead. Now, when I first saw it, I couldn't help but just be completely taken out of the film by the fact that they've digitally recreated him. It was a completely involuntary reaction, and I completely lost what was happening in that scene with his interaction with Krennic. On second viewing, I didn't mind it as much. I do actually think that there is a lot of good work that's gone into it, but it still falls into the uncanny valley for me. As I said in my spoiler-free review, I thought that they were going to do it really well, because when you first introduced to him, he's looking out of a window at the Death Star's creation and you just see his reflection, and I thought that is absolutely great. But then he turns around and the scene just gets bigger and you get a real close-up look at him. Now, I've been thinking about how they could have included him still and avoided going into the uncanny valley, and I think they should have done more scenes with him, but as a hologram. I think with the hologram effect, it wouldn't have been as noticeable, but you still would have got him in there. Having said all that, I did really appreciate seeing him again, and I really loved the conflict between him and Krennic when he's like, "I'm taking control of the Death Star," and Krennic's like, "We are standing amidst my own creation, not yours." I think that was really great. But as I say, uncanny valley for me. It just, the first time I watched it, completely took me out of the film, which is such a shame because the rest of the CGI in the film is flawless. They've managed to blend it in with real location shoots and practical effects seamlessly. I will say it again, I think this is the best looking Star Wars film ever. The real weaknesses in this film, I do think, is in the narrative though. In the first act, it does jump from planet to planet as you meet multiple people, and it does feel a bit choppy and a bit crowded, but that's not to say that it isn't entertaining. There are some really entertaining moments in it, but there are just so many characters and they have to resort to exposition, so you're just being told who they are. There isn't really any development. This happens with Forrest Whitaker's character Saw Gerrera. It happens with K2SO, who actually just says, "I'm an Imperial droid who has been reprogrammed." And it's the same with Donnie Yen and Wen Jiang's characters. You are told that they are former guardians of this Jedi temple, and that's it. And because these characters aren't developed beyond that, they do have a couple of really cool scenes. Their deaths at the end just don't have that emotional weight that they really should have. But having said all that, I love the fact that they had the balls to actually kill everyone off. Literally everyone dies, which I was kind of expecting, but it was still great that they followed through with it. It just was really... Which brings me on to Darth Vader. Good. It is definitely a case of quality over quantity, but I still would have liked to have seen more of him. As I say, they could have switched out maybe a couple of scenes with Tarkin just to have another scene with Vader doing what he does. But the two scenes that we do get with him are absolutely classic Vader. I love the fact that he chokes Krennic, and the final hallway battle scene is just intimidating but exhilarating. It's fantastic. He's just completely unstoppable. He force chokes someone up to the ceiling and carries on walking through and deflecting all the blaster shots. It's so great. It's such a great payoff. You cannot say that this film doesn't end on a high note. Alright, it's not a happy note, but it's still a high note. Brilliant. So that's my thoughts on Rogue One, a Star Wars story, and pause the video if you want to take a closer look at my enjoyment tracker now. It's definitely got its flaws, but I think it's one of my favourite Star Wars films. Perhaps the biggest compliment that I can say is that it feels like A New Hope, but that's not to say that it doesn't disregard the prequels. I loved all the little nods, particularly Jimmy Smith coming back as Bail Organa. I thought that was such a nice touch, and I got a little shiver down my back when he mentions his Jedi friend who is in in hiding and he will send for him. That's great. But aesthetically, it really does feel like A New Hope. It feels like this gritty, lived-in world, and it leads straight into it. I cannot wait for the day that I've got this on Blu-ray and I'll be able to watch that and then pop in A New Hope straight away. I think they just work perfectly together. It's really, really great. That's why I love it. That's why I think it's good. So thanks very much for watching my spoiler talk video. Feel free to tell me what you thought about it in the comments. Did you like it? Did you dislike it? I also want to know what you thought about digital Tarkin and digital Leia for that matter as well. Is it something that you noticed? What are your thoughts about it? Tell me in the comments below. But once again, thanks very much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. If you can, give it a like and don't forget to share the lave.